Welcome to the Explainer. Look, if you're out there putting in the hard work at the gym, on the track, or on the bike, you already know training is really only half the battle. Today, we're diving straight into the complex and, let's be honest, sometimes totally contradictory science of sports nutrition. We're going to break the whole process down chronologically, stripping away all the bro science to look strictly at what the actual data tells us.
Just look at these endurance athletes pushing their bodies for hours on end without a break. At this elite level, dialing in every single nutritional aspect isn't just a nice little bonus. It is absolutely crucial to athletic success. It's literally the difference between smashing a new personal best and completely hitting a wall. So that brings us to a kind of uncomfortable question. As you're sweating over your meal prep, is your pre-workout meal secretly sabotaging your gains? You might be giving 100% in your workouts, but what and when you eat might actually be working against all that hard work. Let's get that fixed. All right, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover pre-workout nutrition basics, foods to avoid beforehand, powering up with supplements, fueling during the workout, and finally, post-workout recovery rules.
Starting right off with Section 1, Pre-Workout Nutrition Basics.
Let's translate the heavy science into a timeline you can actually use every day. About 2 to 3 hours before you train, you want to grab a normal mixed meal of whole foods. Now, if you're rushing and you find yourself in that 0 to 60-minute window right before your workout, switch to a liquid shake or smoothie. That way your body isn't working overtime trying to digest a heavy meal. And finally, that 15 to 30-minute window right before you hit the gym is exactly when you want to take your performance supplements.
Now, when you're putting together that meal 2 to 3 hours out, you really need to understand the glycemic index. Simply put, this is just a way to predict your blood glucose response after eating something compared to pure glucose, which sits at a baseline score of 100. So why does this matter for us? Well, low glycemic index foods take a lot longer to break down in your digestive tract. That means they provide a steady, slow release of usable carbohydrates, basically energy, to your muscles for a much longer time, rather than a massive spike and a terrible crash. To put that into perspective, take a look at this. Anything with an index of 55 or less is considered low glycemic. Wholemeal spaghetti sits beautifully right there at 42. Compare that to brown rice at 66 and white rice way up at 72. So if you want sustained, long-lasting energy for a really grueling session, that bowl of wholemeal spaghetti is actually a surprisingly better choice than the classic bodybuilder staple of white rice. Crazy, right?
Moving right along to Section 2, foods to avoid beforehand.
We've all had that awful feeling of dragging a heavy weight around the gym, right? Usually it's because of these exact culprits. Heavy, greasy foods are terrible because they force your body to divert blood away from your working muscles and send it straight to your stomach for digestion. Sugary snacks, they'll give you a quick spike, sure, but then a massive, exhausting drop in blood sugar. Dairy products can leave you feeling super bloated and heavy. High-fiber foods, which are normally awesome for you, just slow down digestion way too much right before training. And spicy foods, they irritate the stomach and artificially spike your core body temperature, meaning you'll overheat way faster. Save the hot sauce for the victory meal.
All right, Section 3, powering up with supplements.
3 is the magic number here for caffeine. The science tells us that 3 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body mass is the threshold you absolutely need to hit to see any real positive performance-enhancing effects. For an average 65-kilogram athlete, we're talking roughly 200 to 400 milligrams. And you'll want to take this about 15 to 30 minutes before your event, so it actually has time to hit your bloodstream. But here's a huge caveat. You should really reserve high-dose caffeine as a supplement exclusively for race days or key competitions. Seriously, don't use it for your everyday training sessions. If you take it every single day, your body just gets used to it, and you'll need more and more to feel anything. Plus, you risk overexerting yourself and totally wrecking your sleep cycle. And remember, sleep is when your actual recovery and muscle growth happen. Let's look at 2 massive pre-workout heavyweights, citrulline malate and pure L-citrulline. Both of these guys boost nitric oxide and blood flow, which helps clear out that fatigue-inducing ammonia from your system. But check out citrulline malate. Because it has added malic acid, it actually jumps into the Krebs cycle and helps synthesize ATP, which is literally your body's energy currency. That means citrulline malate doesn't just give you a crazy pump. It actively supports energy production. That makes it totally superior to high-intensity athletes. You'll want to aim for 6 to 8 grams of it about 30 to 60 minutes before you train. Next up, Section 4, Fueling During the Workout. The rules for this phase are actually surprisingly simple. Step 1, if your workout is under 2 hours, you generally just need water. You absolutely do not need sugary sports drinks for a standard 45-minute gym session unless it's stupidly hot and you're sweating buckets. But step 2, for endurance events lasting over 2 hours, you have to actively fuel. The data recommends getting in about 15 grams of protein and 30 to 45 grams of carbs every single hour. That's going to prevent muscle breakdown and keep your energy tank full. Just be super careful not to overdo it. 60 to 80 grams. That is the absolute upper limit of carbohydrates your gut can absorb per hour while you're exercising. Chugging down more than that won't give you magic energy. It's just going to sit in your stomach like a rock and give you awful cramps. Now, circling back to caffeine for a second. Just like your glycogen levels tank during a long race, your caffeine levels plummet too. This comparison shows a pretty next-level strategy. You did your pre-race loading of 3 to 6 milligrams per kilogram, right? Well, if the race is super long, you need to fuel during the race with an extra 1 milligram per kilogram of body mass every hour. Topping it up like this ensures your bloodstream levels stay above that magic performance-enhancing threshold from the starting gun all the way to the finish line. Finally, Section 5, Post-Workout Recovery Rules. Listen to this quote. There's no real evidence that protein powders, especially the fast-digesting kind, are any better for us than whole food protein after training. For years, we've been sold this total myth of the panicked anabolic window. You know, the idea that you have to sprint to the locker room and chug a fast-digesting whey isolate the literal second you drop a dumbbell? Well, the reality? The protein from that meal you ate 2 hours before training is actually still peaking in your bloodstream. And while we're busting myths, let's talk about the massive sugar spike. You absolutely do not need to pound pure sugar to aggressively spike your insulin post-workout. The science shows that muscle protein synthesis actually peaks when insulin is just slightly elevated, only about 3 times above your fasting levels. A totally standard, minimally processed mixed meal of whole foods and some fruit easily hits that optimal level. And better yet, it sustains it for up to 4 hours, refilling your glycogen beautifully without sending you into a horrible sugar crash. So let's sum up the ultimate post-workout game plan. Basically, you just want a real meal. Men aim for 40 to 60 grams of protein. That's roughly 2 palm-sized portions. Women aim for 20 to 30 grams, or about 1 palm. Throw in some complex carbs, your veggies, and your healthy fats. And here's the best news. You have a super generous 1 to 2 hour window to actually go home, cook, and enjoy this food. Oh, and you know that old dogma about avoiding fats post-workout because they slow down digestion? The science absolutely debunks that. Fat does not reduce your recovery benefits. In fact, whole milk has actually been shown to give a better net protein balance than skim milk. Go figure. Which leaves us with this final thought. We spend so much time obsessing over the reps, the miles, and exactly what goes onto our plates. But could changing when you eat, perfectly aligning your nutrition with this timeline, be the ultimate secret to unlocking your next personal best? I highly encourage you to take this blueprint, try it out on your very next training session, and see how much better you feel. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep pushing those limits.